Hello everyone, this is Michael with TOAMagic.com. Today we're joined by Rusty from Next Ridge Games. Rusty bought a fairly substantial collection and wanted to just go over some of the pricing of some of the higher end pieces. So we're going to be talking about that today. I'll be pulling the pictures up on screen in the front and back, so you can go ahead and take a look in the comments and see if you agree or disagree. And if you wanted to buy anything, you can reach out to him. Rusty, why don't you go ahead and say hi and
Yeah.
let people know where they can find you.
Hey guys, I'm Rusty Hunt. I own Next Ridge Games, and the easiest way to contact me would be on Facebook, or you can find me on Twitter under at Eternusira. I'll end up giving Michael the link to everything. That's just the easiest way because as Michael knows, being busy sometimes, it's direct contact's the easiest way. And a lot of the stuff that we have here is actually kind of oddity stuff, almost you could say. Nothing like misprints or anything, but like they're expensive cards, rare signatures. Really good condition overall for most of it. So, I'm obviously looking for his input on that stuff since he deals with it more than I do.
All right, so I guess we can go through these pictures in order. You were talking about the Alpha Demonic Tutor as the first card that was uh, of interest to you.
Yeah, so like these are the cards that I picked out that were higher dollar slash, like harder market price for stuff. So it's I would say it's an HP, Alpha Demonic Tutor that's signed. So pricing that, like, is it something that when we're pricing it, are we just going to be looking at like eBay, TCG player and going, okay, this is HP, maybe command a smaller premium or whatever, but that's roughly what our baseline is? Or is it something that the market's so small for stuff like this that like, the last one sold, it's been 3 months. I mean, like, how do you approach stuff like that?
So we can kind of get some generic background by just looking at what's available on TCG Player and on Amazon. This card it is a playable Demonic Tutor in every format that you can
Yeah.
play it. Right. There's a little bit of grade softening in Vintage, especially no proxy Vintage, where they'll let cards pass that are a little bit worse than what you'll see elsewhere. So there's no concerns about that. But in my experience, a card like this, you want to be pricing more on the aggressive side because there's not intrinsic demand on something like this. You don't really want to hold on to it. Whereas some of the cards that you're going to see playing Commander, like something like a Mishra's Workshop or a Tabernacle or a Bazaar, you can generate really good trade-ins towards, and you're more inclined to want to keep a card like that in stock longer.
Okay. So, like with stuff like that, like, let's go to like the next card, just a playset of workshops. I would say they're MP. By our grading by
Uh,
the grading standards that we use at
just
Next
just
Ridge.
to give you my last thoughts on
Oh
Demonic,
yeah.
um, we had one sell on eBay for 500. It looks like, with like a chipped edge, but pretty reasonable. That was a buy it now back on October 8th. I don't know when it was listed, but uh, the bottom end of TCG Player for HPs is 550. If I was going to put this up for sale on Twitter, I would probably start somewhere in the high fours.
Yeah, that my thought was maybe like 480, maybe at 5, like the first day, see if anybody's interested. So something I like to do, obviously, if you're buying more from me, I'm going to give you a discount. So start kind of like at 5, and if they say they have other stuff they're interested in, then maybe go, okay, I'll go a little bit lower for you. Um, and looking at like the price data that's available to me, I'd probably be, like I said, right at 5, maybe a little bit lower.
Yeah. Now,
Uh,
Demonic Tutor isn't uncommon, so there's a lot more of these available than something like an Alpha Underground Sea or an Alpha Stasis, where there
mhm.
might only be two complete eBay sales and they're nowhere close to the same grade.
Yeah, and it's also signed, but the artist signature is not a rare signature to acquire. So that's something that I wouldn't obviously ask or expect a premium for.
Yeah, you definitely have some interesting artist signed cards coming up. But the next thing you have
Yeah.
is Mishra's Workshops.
Yes, I have a set. I would say they are MP. I mean, the pictures I sent are decent enough. You could probably give them a glance and tell me what you think. But I would say they're pretty much MP. Maybe because of older cards, you might get away with light played. Um, but looking at obviously TCG player, this card's just not existent.
Yeah, so I had almost 10 workshops back in July. Um, the nicer ones all sold at about 1,700, and those were like near mint minus. I probably could have pushed that a little bit higher. The worst ones kind of sold in the 13 or 14 range. Um,
Hmm.
there's been a pretty high amount of activity on workshops on Facebook recently, both people having them and people trying to sell them. I think the crystallized price on these right now is about $2,000, plus or minus 100. I think
Okay.
$2,000 has some anchoring to it, where people don't really want to pay too much above that on any of these in particular, uh, just as a mental thing.
Hmm. I agree. There's obviously mental price points, and that's something that I'm very aware of, and people should take into consideration.
Yeah,
Paying $2,000 for a card is not like there's a difference between paying 2,000 and 1,900. But once they're paying 2,000 almost, like if you're at like 2,100, you might as well be at 23, 2,400 almost because you're already past that 2,000 round number in people's
yeah.
heads.
There's no psychological difference to it in people's minds.
Hmm. Um, and then so those are pretty easy, I would say. Like those aren't something because they're not signed or anything weird. I have a drop of honey that is signed, and I would say it is also HP.
Uh,
And since signature is semi-common,
yep.
so it's not like a premium there, I would just probably say an HP drop of honey. Nothing super complicated with that one, I don't think, but it's an older card, and right now the market's a little weird. So,
Yeah.
you
So
know,
drops have historically been really bad, like very very hard to sell. Um,
hmm
basically, ever since they stopped seeing play in Legacy, I have BGS nines on eBay in the like 650 $700 range, and we just sold a uh, MP copy today on eBay. Someone gave a best offer of 400, and we took it. So realistically, 375 is kind of
3,500, yeah,
the start.
350 almost was what I was thinking,
Yep.
maybe. Something along that range because it's not something that's like super, fantastic. It's not like the next few cards that we have coming up, actually. So, that one's pretty easy. The library now, this is actually the first library that I've owned as far as like not part of like a consignment deal or anything different. Because the first one I was supposed to get was actually fake. That gentleman was not happy when we had to inform him of that. But this one is really cool. I mean, it's signed. It's HP again. Like some of the older cards in
Yep.
here. So I mean, libraries. I know they're not as bad as workshops to find prices of.
hmm
So, I mean, that's just a pretty cut and dry HP, or do you think that market's moving on that one?
Uh, a lot of the data I'm pulling from is kind of just spending a lot of time on Facebook Market,
Of course.
because there are so many people that are posting, "Hey, here's what I want for my cards," more than anything else. Um, I feel like the bottom end of TCG player is actually uh, a little tight in terms of price. I feel almost feels lower than where a lot of the recent bids and asks have been. Uh, on those cards, I would uh, expect to be able to get about 750 out of it
Okay.
without too much hassle. That's a little bit higher than the bottom end of TCG player right now, um, with Al Central and Brainstorm. But one of the things to keep in mind is that on older cards, you're going to be selling these cards with pictures. And a lot of sellers aren't providing pictures on TCG Player because it's kind of tedious. It doesn't interact well with Crystal Commerce. It's a lot of work to do it. We're doing it
Yeah.
now, but it's basically a full time job to scan stuff in and put it online. So
Hmm.
by someone being able to physically see the card, know, oh, it's HP, but I'm okay with that. Uh,
It
definitely
doesn't
is
have a
going to help you
bend
out.
or a rip. It's, like that HP is an actual HP because of the wear on the card, not because of, what some sellers would consider HP.
Right.
So the other one is this next card is actually pretty cool. It's a Shahrazad that's signed, which is
hmm
pretty neat just because, I know their signature demands a little bit of a premium.
Yeah, it doesn't demand the premium like it used to. Kaja does a has produced a comic book in the past couple of years and does signings in the Pacific Northwest. Obviously not during COVID times, but in general,
Yeah.
has done signings recently. So theoretically, I'd probably cost like a $30 or $40 premium on a signature, but it's going to be a little bit tough to get that premium,
Hmm.
just from general experience.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree. I was thinking like something like this, I'd probably sell at like the, 280 range basically, which is almost just dead on TCG player low. And if that's a little high, I can move it down. Like, anywhere in the 250 range to 280 range would probably be reasonable.
Yeah, one of my favorite facts about this card is that the original art for Charizard sold a couple years ago through Heritage,
Hmm.
and it was a record sale at the time, $72,000 in July of 2018.
Yep. Yeah, it was. I remember that sale. Something else sold recently. I want to say that broke 100. That wasn't Lotus, but the next card here is actually really clean. And just recently went up, so it's a beta copy artifact that I would say is light played pretty easily. It's signed. I know Amy doesn't sign too often, from my experience,
Right.
but uh, I haven't been on top of signings honestly recently, so I could be completely wrong on some of this stuff.
No, I would ask for a premium on that for sure.
Okay.
Um,
And then is that like let's say it's probably a BGS 8. It's like,
right.
you know, maybe
Yeah,
like a 7.5.
you're in that 8 range most likely, or not
So,
too far off.
you know, looking at that, that would be something that, so copy artifact in that range. What would you price it at then? Because there's not data for something that's light played, at
Uh,
least on TG.
so I sold a 9 for $1,000 back in July. Um, One of the things that I should mention as relevant data is if you have a TCG Player Pro account, or rather
Hmm.
a direct sell my cards on TCG Player, it doesn't actually have to be Pro. You can in your seller portal uh, under the inventory tab, I believe, you can actually see what the last copy sold for on TCG Player. Now
Hmm.
you don't have the date that it sold, but you do have the price that it sold at.
Yep.
So the last sold near mint was 1100, and there is no LP last sold. Copy artifact is a rare, so there's about 2,000 of them or so out there in the world. Um, so I think that's kind of setting our high end for what this card can be worth is, well, it's probably worth less than $1,000. Um, Continuing to go down from there. Like revised copies are up a bunch. I don't quite know where they are. Um,
Yeah. I mean, I know they spiked. I don't know if they've settled down or anything.
yeah, one of the ways that we can look at cards like this is that all the different versions are kind of going to move in tandem. Um, Not as high of a spike on the worst condition card or on the more common cards. Sorry, the more common cards are going to jump up more, and then the rare alpha beta copies are not going to move up as much. But we can kind of use
Mhm.
this to contextualize recent data that if near mint copy artifact went from $20 to $80 at the start of the year, maybe we have like a 30% jump in the beta ones. Um,
Yeah, I was thinking something like, like a grand, maybe 1,200 or so for something like this. I'm going to do a little bit more research, of course, too, to try to figure an accurate number, especially on cards like this where it's hard to find this price.
right.
But because the only listing that I see is a best offer on a $1,500 listing for a 9. But that's one's obviously not signed, and it was graded, so graded higher than I believe this one would grade.
Um,
So that's something to keep in mind too.
Honestly, the most compelling data I've seen so far is that there's an alpha BGS 8 on TCG Player for 1,400 and an alpha or two LP alpha copies from Sean over at Brainstorm for 1,100. So, beta has to be a little bit less than alpha.
Of course.
Kind of gives credence to that $1,000 number.
Yep. Okay. Um, I agree with that one. And then this one is fast bond that it was HP that is signed. I'm just mentioning the signatures, of course, because like it does matter for liquidity of some of this stuff. Sometimes signed cards are harder to sell, sometimes they're not. But it's stuff we have to obviously take in consideration when we're trying to buy or sell these cards.
Yeah, the phrasing I like to use for fast bond or for signed cards in general is it's not that they're going to sell for less, it's not that they're damaged, it's that it's harder to find the buyer that's going to want them.
Hmm. Yep,
And I think that's a fair take.
that is the exact thing it is. I mean, I just literally sold a set of Mishra's factories for that. They were HP. They were really HP. They were signed by the artist, and I sold them for a 40% premium.
Yep.
Might have been low, but like they were so HP that like I paid a low enough number that I was fine with accepting an offer like that.
Were they
Um,
single signed or double signed?
I want to say they were singles. Maybe they were double signed. They might have been double signed, um, which I know obviously commands a premium.
Yeah, at least a little bit.
But I paid, like I said, so little that I was pretty happy with it overall. And the customer was somebody who's bought stuff for me prior. So looking at this fast bond, obviously, yet again, TCG player is not the greatest source for stuff like this, and it requires obviously a little bit of digging. So with like a beta fast bond, I'm gonna guess probably in the like 550 range for this copy. That
Uh,
might be high,
yeah, I think you're shooting. Uh, I think you're
too
shooting
high.
pretty hot on that. The
Hmm.
the problem is, you're looking at TCG player. There's five total copies. Realistically, three copies plus a graded copy plus somebody who's out of their mind at 5x market,
Hmm.
and the cheapest there is 750 for an LP. Um, I Let me check to see if I've had fast bond recently. I think I have had fast bonds, and they sold in the three range, give or take.
Yeah, I was
Um,
gonna say like it looks like 350 or so for eBay, some eBay listings. And they're all international. It looks like for that.
yeah, they are.
So something that I consider obviously too is you know there is a premium obviously buying from a vendor. Like what you're gonna get, and I think my premium's too high on Fastbound. I fully agree that I shot for the moon. Um, but that's something that like I'd rather be slightly higher on a card and let somebody show interest than be super low and have it immediately get snagged up in a situation where I'm leaving a lot of money on the table.
Right. So
Like,
I sold a LP back in May that was Garfield signed for 400, but I think it went to somebody who I'd kind of consider a small dealer, meaning that
mhm.
there might be room in that for being too cheap. So I think 400 is probably going to be the good price now. I believe Fastbond has gone up over the summer and revised as well, just like Copy Artifact, just like all the reserve list stuff, which does make it a little bit better than it used to be.
Yeah. Now the next one is something that is a really sellable card. It's a Soul Ring, and it is HP. It is signed, but something like that, I think I would probably. I haven't checked ECG player yet because I'm trying not to. Probably being like the 400 range. Like a lot of this is a learning experience for me too, and I like to see what I feel comfortable with my knowledge.
Yeah, this is one of those cards that when we had shows, they never really sold at the asking price. But when we just stopped having shows and I put them online, these cards tended to get bought up on eBay pretty quickly. I think we had five beta Soul Rings at one point, um, before, kind of when all this started, and that on on that type of market online, uh, I think it's pretty likely you're gonna find a buyer at that number. Your back corner is probably a little suspect,
Yeah.
um, and realistically, I might shoot a little bit lower into like maybe three and a quarter. I had some that, and it's so hard looking at data from back in May. Um, but I had one that sold in June for 400. That was pretty clean. Um,
Yeah.
that said, it's
I had an alpha one I sold earlier, like 2 months ago. So like that was decently clean. It's funny because sometimes it's easier to find pricing for alpha cards than it is for beta stuff.
yeah. There's clearly fewer people that are actively buying alpha because of how much of it just never hit the market in the first place. This is a
Hmm.
card that also has a good amount of grade compression where people are okay taking a played copy, but don't necessarily want to spend the extra couple $100 for a near mint copy. Um, the cheapest near mint on TCG is like six and a quarter, whereas HPs are 400. Like it's a smaller spread than a lot of other cards.
Yep. Yep. Obviously because they want to play it. And so this next card is probably the most expensive thing we'll end up having. Second most expensive thing, at least.
Probably
It's
second.
Yeah, it should be second. But it's a beta time twister that is signed. I would say it's HP. The front, honestly, it has decent appeal. Like at the front, it's not horrible. The back is where there's a little bit more wear, but there's no bends or creases or anything. Um, so I was thinking in the range because this card's kind of going everywhere right now. It's a really awkward thing, I think, to price. I was going to be anywhere from 6 to 8,000. I mean, I don't know. Like,
Yeah, so Time Twister has largely been fueled by two things. The first being international demand to Japan. The card historically exported over to Japan very well in the past almost decade, more or less. But recently, the rise of competitive EDH in the United States has been, the rise of competitive EDH in the United States has been a pretty big driver as well. So I don't think beta is going to get the similar jump that Unlimited recently saw. Like if this card was
mhm,
unlimited 6 months ago, this would probably be a $2,500, $2,600 twister. Now it's probably like a $3,500 unlimited twister. So
mhm.
in beta, I think you can get six out of it pretty easily. But I don't think the market for a beta twister is particularly large in the same sense.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's one of those things that like, and obviously, if it was a very clean copy, it would be, sky's the limit.
Right.
So,
One of the problems I've had a near mint twister in the case for 3 grand for unlimited, and I've had an HP beta twister in the case for 3 grand, and people would look at both and just take the clean unlimited copy almost every time.
yep, 100%. I always take the cleaner copy. I mean, it's, especially with the older stuff. So then trying to move on to the next cards, we
Yep.
have two German Black Border Taigas, and they are both signed in gold. So, obviously Alexander signs a ton. There's not really a premium. Signing in gold's a little cool, but they're LP. Like, they are very clean.
They're nice. Yep.
Um, this is something, obviously, I know you deal with a lot of the FBB stuff. So, if you have an idea, I'm sure you know the number probably off the top of your head.
Yeah, clean Tigers are probably at 450 right now. Would be where I'd price them. Uh, you do get a we call it like a full grade bump for German, which means it's like $30 or $40
Yep.
higher. I would usually pull the grade bump back for a non-English copy.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I'd probably be asking 450 for clean Tigers right now.
And then the next three cards. So this person was a judge that I bought all this stuff from, actually, and they had some really clean judge foils. So this cradle is, I would say, technically light played. It's very close to near mint, but obviously I'm on the stricter end of stuff. So with cradle jumping, like, I mean, I don't, has a foil one sold in the last 2 months? I don't even know.
I believe they have, yes.
So I mean, that one should be semi easy to price considerably. I mean, they were. I'm just double checking, obviously, to kind of see what I think. The lowest on TCG player, obviously, for a light plate is 2,100. I don't think that's the real number. I think the number is like 1,800. If I don't mind sitting on it for a little bit,
So
but
for these next three cards, we're kind of going to deal on them on the same general scope. Uh,
mhm,
Judge promos are historically always more common in Europe than they are in the United States. Um, so if you want a real number, I would probably price about 30%
card one.
over the Magic card market number in Europe.
Okay,
Uh, for Cradle, I think that's going to be about 1,500.
yeah, I'm checking it right now, honestly. Cradle for condition. Excellent condition. The lowest one is 1,000. The
And it's
lowest
it's
near
one
mint,
point 1.2 to 1 right now.
yeah, and then the lowest near mint is 1,250.
Yep.
So I mean, looking in the range, I guess they doubled in the last 4 months.
More or less. Yeah, I'd probably be. I think 1,700, 1,800 is the a reasonable number. There's somebody on Facebook with like 30 copies of this card,
Near
so
mint
you can
should be,
always. Sorry.
yeah. I was just say I try not to use like the term near mint unless I believe the card's like a
Yeah.
9+. Like, I want to be really strict.
Uh, but yeah, there is a seller on Facebook with like 20 or 30 copies. You can take a look at what they're asking and kind of price around that as well. It's kind of a pretty big anchor.
So the survival is obviously something you've talked about before on Twitter recently.
Yep.
You probably know this number close because I believe you have one. And is it something you even expect to sell? Like,
So I have a, I sold a Judge Survival at 1,000 about 3 weeks ago or so.
Hmm.
After tweeting about how there are none on TCG Player, there's one at like 700. I'm just gonna list mine at 1,000, and then it just sold,
Yep.
obviously. I just bought a BGS 9, which obviously doesn't have a premium or a particularly big premium, but I ended up paying 900 in trade on it. I just picked up a bunch of copies from Europe at 850 in trade,
Hmm.
ungraded. So for a clean copy here, I'd be asking in the 1,000 to 1,100 range.
Okay. Next one is Judge Wheel. I've sold I think two in the last like 3 months or so. So like it's just with some of this stuff. Obviously, Magic card prices are just kind of insane right now.
Right. Yeah, across the board, like it's there are a lot of people selling cards still, but there's just more interest in buying right now.
Hmm.
Um,
Judge Wheel is probably a $700, which is roughly the range that I sold this other one at a while ago. Like
yep.
I know they went up a little bit, whatever. So the next one is something that, based off of what I've seen on Facebook, I have a moat that the only issue with the card, it's an English moat, of course.
Yep.
The only issue with the card is on the front, there's a nick at the top.
Yep.
Pretty obvious, but besides that, the front's really clean. The back has maybe one little minor corner nick. Um, so, like, if it didn't have these two nicks on it, I'd probably almost be gradable. Um, at least enough that it's at least considering.
Yep.
But with that, with them not being gradable, in my opinion, I know that we had Terrence from Black Magic Games posted two recently at like 650 or so. I want to say,
Yeah.
is that roughly the range that you would expect on a card like that?
Uh, I think being so, Rusty's in Florida. CGC is very close by, within what, an hour of you, something like
It's
that.
literally a 45-minute drive. Yeah,
Yeah, I would
it's
probably add this to your grading pile. Even with that top nick, I think a 9 is possible. If you end up with an 8.5, you kind of have an expensive paperweight,
hmm.
but it's probably worth the shot, because the upside is like pretty reasonable. Um,
Okay.
the as cards get more expensive, and collecting becomes a bigger part of Magic in general, I think it's generally worth taking some shots on stuff like this. Um, there are a lot of copies on TCG Player. Moat's always been
Yep.
a more common card, than a lot of the other Legends cards, but it looks like
Yeah.
it's maybe 750 or so is like the raw number, and then
Yeah.
you kind of get to lock in an extra $100 if it grades out well.
Yeah. Okay. And then the next card, reading it is the fun stuff now, which actually makes me excited. The next card's a Tabernacle that's signed,
Yep.
and it's signed in gold. So that matters to some people, obviously, for the signatures. It is LP. Besides that, it's English. Um, I looked this up prior to us talking, and I have no idea.
So I just sold a MP like this week for 1950 on TCG. Um, Nicola Benson signed a lot of cards in a lot of dumb colors.
Yep.
I've had like pink signed Tabernacles before. It's been a wild one. Um, so this kind of goes back to workshop where you're kind of sitting at about that $2,000 uh, range, ceiling, etc., and you can push maybe on that a little bit, but you're gonna get some sensitivity by being so close to 2,000.
Yep. And then so this card is I don't even know if you have an idea on pricing for some of the stuff in here because it's weird. I have a foil Russian the first sliver. Very clean. Obviously, there's just like everything else in this gentleman's collection. Um, hope it's on eBay type of deal. Hope one sold on eBay. Is that kind of like the
Um, so Russian Modern Horizons, I think, is a little bit more common than some of the other sets in Russian because a
Mhm.
very large amount of it was imported into the U.S. by some people in the finance community. Um,
Yep.
it's funny when you have resources and things work out. If you go to mtgru.com, uh,
Mhm.
there is this is a Russian dealer that has cards in Russian foil. They have first sliver in Russian foil for $210.
Okay.
So it's just available.
So that one, yeah, just awesome. Because I have to figure out how to price this playset of Russian foil hex drinkers in the set too. Um, like this guy's collection was awesome. Honestly, it was one of those fun buys. The next one is an interesting one. So this is a plateau,
Hmm.
and I want to say that this is actually the artist that did the revised art copied the Drew Tucker art, is what it looks like to me.
So Drew Tucker did the yeah, Drew Tucker did the unlimited
Alpha
art,
Beta Unlimited art.
Alpha Unlimited art,
Mhm.
and then the file was lost, and then Cornelius Broody did the revised FWB art, but is uncredited in every version except I believe German.
Mhm.
He's correctly credited in. Um, but yeah, Drew Tucker primarily paints in watercolor. This looks like very much like a Drew Tucker painting, so I would not be surprised that it was indeed a Drew Tucker piece.
Yeah, it looks like it. Let me actually pull up the German one to see if I can get the name to look at the signature. Because I think this is the actual artist. I don't know. I'm going to look it up. Obviously, do some more research. The next card is something that's weird, just because I know that.
It's definitely a Drew Tucker signature. I would expect it to be a Drew Tucker piece. Uh,
Okay.
I wouldn't have any doubts to it. It obviously came from a judge, and like a judge getting something like this commissioned um, is probably pretty reasonable. I would expect the commission from Drew to be about $200, give or take. Um, Alyssa has a commissioned Tucker piece as well. That's a larger size, but not on a Magic card. Um, I would probably be asking $500 on this, but be a little bit flexible when people give you offers.
Okay, I agree with that. So the next one is in here because it's kind of a weird one. It's Japanese foil light dragon
Yep.
Skittles. So it's kind of in here because technically it just went up actually. Like I actually saw that it went up in the last few days for market price. So obviously for English copies. So like, what would you probably price like an older copy like this?
This card's annoying because it was just in Double Masters.
Yep.
That might be like the single worst part of it. It's also a uh, we're gonna go down a rabbit hole in this one. I don't want to. Um, Japan as a country really likes mono black. Like there's a culture of players that play mono black strategies. Cards like Phyrexian Obliterator, Lake of the Dead have historically been very good in Japan for various reasons, and it's very strange. So while this this card in particular looks like it's a very casual card, in Japan copies are not common. This isn't something that regularly got exported, whereas other cards in Scars of Mirrodin that were more casual in nature got exported fairly regularly. Um, so it looks like the bottom end of pricing in Japan is like $80. Haruya has one in stock. Haruya has an HP in stock at $80. So I'm sorry, um, and a Nirman in stock at like 150. I would expect them to kind of care about these prices, kind of make sure that those prices uh, are reasonable more or less. It doesn't look like there's a necessarily very large premium against English copies, um,
hmm
but I would kind of just shoot for the $150 and probably be okay with that.
Go from there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that sounds reasonable. This copy is obviously really clean too. Which is something that's important, obviously, I know for overseas on grading. Um, so the next one is an interesting one because it's a Russian foil reflecting pool. I mean, I did from Shadowmoor. So that I don't know. Like, I'm sure we can probably find a price.
Yeah, this kind of is how much time do you want to spend on a card like this. I don't think this card is particularly good in Commander, as I look that up. So I'm trying to figure out what the actual market is for this. Uh, the value I think is also hurt a little bit because there's like Korean Tempest ones. Uh,
Yep.
so EDH Rec put this at 7%, 29,000 decks, which is way higher than I thought it was, which means this is probably going to end up in somebody's very nice Commander deck. I don't know how much that bias is between uh, you know, competitive decks and very casual decks, but Reflecting Pool has never been particularly cheap. to the point where you would use it as like a budget replacement, right? Oh, I can't afford uh, an $8 pain land. I'm going to play a $2 reflecting pool instead. Back when pain lands were $8. Uh, I think in general, this card's always been a little bit pricey.
Yep, especially for the foil because the foil actually has the white mana symbol in it. All of them do.
Right.
But so like obviously English foils are like right at $50 for light played.
Yep.
Um, you would put this one at what would you like? What type of premium would you put on?
I'd just put $100 on it. The
Okay.
2x multiplier seems pretty reasonable. Um, it looks like Japanese copies are in like the $60 range, like a little bit of a premium, $70 range maybe. Um, that said, this is the sort of card that you're going to be buying for $20 to try to sell for 100, and whatever happens, kind of happens.
It's make me a reasonable offer. Don't be a horrible human being, and you're probably going to get it. Um, that's how I obviously operate with some stuff like this too. So that's kind of why like I ask questions about this stuff because even even if you deal with Russian foils, it's still sometimes a guessing game. Like
It very
um,
much is. Yep.
with this other stuff now, so this is more obviously your wheelhouse because I'm not throwing giant curveballs at you. This is going to be some unlimited power that I have. Um, but what I think is still funny about this is the fronts are very clean. So we have a recall. It is signed. The front is very clean, honestly. Um, like I was actually very surprised with how clean the fronts are for his power compared to the backs a little bit. But
Right.
the back makes it HP in my opinion. But I think it's technically MP for older stuff. I mean,
Yeah, I would give that an MP, assuming I'm looking at the right copy. I think the image is turned on this one between the two.
yeah, the image turn is to the bottom right.
Yep. Yeah, I would definitely call it MP. Um, for a recall, my buy price of something like this would probably be like uh, 18 unsigned, 19 sorry, 18 signed, 1900 unsigned. I would probably be trying to out this for like 2500.
Okay.
So maybe
Um,
2400 for the signature.
yeah, I mean, I know I sold because I sold a like an LP Nearmint one like 3 months ago for like 2,500 to a good customer.
Yep.
So like for me, it's just more the signature with the grading. It's funny. I feel more confident trying to price 9.5 graded cards than I do pricing cards that have wear on them. Which is just how this market is sometimes.
Yeah, a lot
So
of a lot of it's just contextualizing. It's, oh, I sold those a little bit worse. Cool, I'm gonna ask for a little bit more, and the more volume you do in this sort of stuff, the easier it gets.
So I want to skip over the next card and work on the other stuff that's unlimited that we have in the
Yep.
next picture because I know the next card is something we're going to talk about a lot. So the Mox Jet is signed. I mean, it's a Fraser signature. He signs a lot. Same thing. The front is very clean. Nothing major wrong with the front, and the back it's I would say clearly HP.
Yep. One of the things to know about Fraser signed power is that Dan hates signing power. He charges like a hundred
Okay.
dollars. He charges like $100 a card to sign.
Okay.
So even though he's available, he's common. If anybody wants this, it's much harder to get it.
Okay.
Um, I am not an expert at signatures by any means. I believe between the signature placement and size, this is like the middle tier, somewhere between 1997 to 2002. Because I
Okay.
have seen some earlier Fraser signatures that are much tighter and smaller that were emblematic of like the 93 to 95 style.
Okay. So this is something that you would be at like kind of like an MP copy range or so, just like, what would you be at? 1800. Obviously, TCG might be at like 22.
I would probably grade this as HP. Um, I I really struggled to sell Mox Jets at the start. I had five for like multiple shows back when we still had events, and
Well,
it's
I
it's
was I was because of that, so I'm sorry.
kind of crazy. Oh yeah, you. I did buy
I,
several of those in that deal
I
from
was
you.
I was four of them.
Um,
So yeah.
so actually, I do have one of these available. It's on TCG Player and TOAMagic.com for $2,000. I believe mine is worse than yours by a decent amount. Yeah, mine's a
I'll
little bit
pull it
worse.
up since I'm. Yeah, your front it looks like, and yeah, the back's a little worse, but it's really so hard because like my back actually might technically be worse than yours. Magic cards are so weird sometimes. But yeah, either way, so like you're thinking like the 2000 ish, like $2,100 range because of the signature.
Right. Yeah. It's about $2,000 Mox, and I'm
Okay.
pretty comfortable in that at that number.
So we have an unsigned Mox Pearl now.
Yep.
The front again is very clean on the front. This guy definitely was looking for like clean front power. The back is HP. It's definitely better than the Mox, but or the Mox Jet, but it is still an HP card. I would say this one should be a little bit more cut and dry.
Yeah. I would bump this up to MP for sure on power,
Okay.
um, largely because the name grade doesn't matter as much
Yep.
uh, as the physical card. Like you're not buying the grade, you're buying the card. Um,
Hmm.
so really, the reason we're applying a grade to it is just to compare it to other dealers and their cards.
So you'd
Uh,
be at. I mean, you have one on TCG Player right now for 2,000. So
yep. And yours is again a little bit nicer. I might be a touch high on the market at 2,000, not by a lot, just by maybe $50 or $100. Uh,
yeah, I mean, it being on TCG Player, like it's one of those things where somebody reaches out to you potentially. Maybe this will make over.
well, the fees on this card are 5.5% on TCG Player,
Hmm.
so there's actually not that big of a difference. Um, that's listings with photos have a fee cap of $50.
Hmm.
So of the 10% referral fee, you still pay the 3% PayPal fee on everything.
Yep.
So it's $60 plus 50, which is a little bit better uh,
Did
than.
they remove the cap? Because I thought there was a cap of $50 max fee per item.
I don't believe there's a cap um, on items without picture.
Okay. Yeah.
I haven't sold anything expensive without a picture in a while. I've actually switched over to entirely scanning items over $200
Yeah. I mean, it
uh,
makes sense.
with almost no exceptions.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, like that's we know that people seeing the card is going to be able to cause it to sell quicker. So then we got a Mox Ruby.
Sorry,
I mean,
the pearl, yeah, I'd probably price it 20, 50, 21.
yep. The Ruby, same thing. I would say the back, it's MP probably on the back. It's
Yep,
actually cleaner than the other ones.
it is cleaner. Yeah,
Um, Signature again, so it's just one of those things where you look at MP kind of and then add your small premium to it.
yeah. I don't know how
So
often you can actually get that small premium on signed cards because again, audience being smaller, etc. Um,
yeah. So you
this
think
is
like 23?
the Ruby is cleaner. As I look at other listings on TCG Player, it's weird. I know most of the power that we own or most of the inventory we own at any given time, but at the same time, I saw that we had a damaged Mox Ruby and I was trying to figure out why it was damaged and why we still own it because I just don't remember the card. Um, yeah, I would probably go to 22 on this because again, it's like half a grade or a third of a grade better than the. Uh, all right, so Unlimited Ruby. This is LP minus. I don't really like minus grades as a general rule of thumb, but for power, you can kind of dither it a little bit. Uh, there's a bunch on TCG Player. The value on TCG Player is kind of inflated on a lot of power across the board. I would say in general, but I think this card is probably in the $2,200 $2,300 range for a Ruby.
Okay. And then the next one is obviously a Sapphire. Like, we skipped over an Emerald. We don't have an Emerald, but the Sapphire is signed. The front is very clean, especially considering the back is probably the worst of the power.
Sapphire is definitely the worst shape. Um, Historically, pre-pandemic, this was an easy $1,700 buy list, sell for like 21. Right now, I'd probably pay 21 and sell for like 25.
Okay.
Uh,
And then we'll just do this last little card, and then we'll go back to the other one. So we have a unlimited underground sea that is very clean. The back has a little bit of wear, but it is a clear light play.
yep.
So that one's pretty common unless duels are disappearing again. I mean, Underground Sea has gone up $100 for revised in the last like month. So would you put this the C at something like ballpark here, like 859?
850 or 9 would be my expectation for a unlimited underground sea. That's in nice shape. Yep.
Okay. So then obviously this is the big card out of everything. We'll take care of this before we forget. I got a Christopher Rush signed Unlimited Lotus, and the front is insanely clean,
Right.
and the back obviously not the greatest condition. But with Rush signed cards, really grading is not as relevant, at least in my experience.
Yep.
Um, so like you basically almost get to kind of ignore the grade. On a card that's expensive, you don't. But like for cheaper cards, if you had Rush signed, let's just say player rewards mana leaks, you just go here's a $40-$50 premium. Um, on something like a Lotus, you get much more of a premium. What would you be at with something like this?
I would put a $500 to $700 premium on a Christopher Rush signed Black Lotus on the sell side. Um, Realistically, I think something like this I'd probably try to buy for 5,000 and sell for like 7. So sell price for this is probably 7,500 or so.
Okay,
Um,
yeah, I was gonna say I was thinking like maybe 8 or so in that range.
yeah, it's really hard in a market that keeps going up because we know the market's going up. We can kind of
Hmm.
guess where things are going to go based on past sales, but it's much easier to overshoot or undershoot in a market that's going up than in something like in a very stable market where you're just buying a card for 100 and selling it for 150 every day.
Yeah, especially with like stuff like this. Like I'll probably end up doing some more research and I'll shoot you a message later, just based off of what I find. With a card like this, because it also comes down to what is the tolerance for me wanting to move this card.
Right.
There's never going to be any more, so I could set it at 10,000 in theory, and it at some point will sell for that. I don't see any reason why it would never reach that number, in a
Right.
typical situation. So that's actually something that's pretty cool. Like, this is something that I'm going to kind of figure around with. And the next 3 cards are just cool cards, honestly, that you don't see often, especially in these conditions, or even signed. And
Right.
two of these happen to be signed. So we have a foil Mastercore. I've never seen a starter signature actually, so that's kind of a weird one for me. I mean, I still need to confirm the signature, but knowing he got almost all the cards signed himself, I'm confident that it's legitimate.
Yeah, I would
But
I would expect that to be a legitimate signature. It does look similar to uh, other cards signed by uh, by Paulo Parente that I've seen in the past. Um, this is this is definitely one where the uh, TCG player data is good enough, so it's not.
yep, would that command a premium though with the signature? Like,
I don't believe that you could put a big premium on Parenti. Um,
yeah, yeah.
like the Grim Monolith, getting a premium from a chippy signature
Chippy
is
is, yeah.
pretty reasonable. I had one at the start of the pandemic that I ended up selling a little bit cheap, but I was happy getting the money out of it. Um,
Yeah, I mean, Chippy Signature is obviously a completely different
right,
ballpark. And obviously, like with this stuff, like with his signature, and premium. Obviously, it's not something big that I expect, but like some artists, as a vendor for me, I don't charge a premium for some signatures when I'm selling the card because they sign common.
right,
Rob Alexander signs all the time, so I'm not gonna obviously demand a premium. In fact, I might go a little bit lower if I want to move the card. But something like like the Mastercore, it might be something that commands maybe a $5 or $10 premium. That's kind of why I had it in there because it's one of those lower end range things. The
So
next
Paulo
card,
Paulo Parente uh, did a signing event a couple years ago. Um, in the signed card community, there's a number of artist agents or individuals that network with a number of artists and facilitate a signature event. Um, So I believe Paulo Parenti is from the Philippines, or at the time, 4 years ago, was living in the Philippines, and it was $2 a card to get anything signed that you wanted to get signed by him.
Okay. And the next card then is a card that recently went up. It's a foil metal worker
Yep,
that is double signed. It is signed by Garfield and the artist, I believe.
yep.
So I've never seen the artist signature, and I know Garfield commands a premium. So walk me through if it was just signed by, let's just say, the artist. What would no premium, small premium?
Uh, so on a lot of these, uh, on any of the sign cards where you start to have a question, I usually just go in the sign group on Facebook and look at the artist name,
Yep.
just to take a look at uh, who's uh, talking about stuff, and um, if there's a sale, or if there's a basically any amount of information, because like you can kind of guess what a generic card was worth at any point in time, and you can kind of guess uh, what the signature markup was for an individual card. Um, Now Garfield, I don't know quite how big the premium is on Garfield signatures. I had a bunch earlier in the year. I didn't really push for a premium on it. His signature is very ugly, really. But
Yeah. I'm actually looking at so just I also want to like let people know because I'm familiar with the group Give Me Mana, Sign Magic the Gathering cards. That's the group on Facebook. And like looking at Don's signature, by the way, it seems he charges €10 for a regular side metal worker. If you want shadow signature on the metal worker, which this one's not, it's €20. So you could probably say it's a you know $10 premium or so because that's the cost to get it signed.
yep,
But that signing looks like it's past at this point. To give you an idea, like most artists, the idea is artists charge something for a signature to make it worth their time, but a lot of people do pay more for that signature because they want to support the artist. They want to get more signed cards.
right.
So I've seen a slight premium with Garfield signature stuff. I've seen stuff anywhere from like a $5 to $10 premium to like 20 or 30. I don't know if he does signings, if he only did them in person now. Like it's an awkward one, basically.
Yeah, I think this card is definitely something special because it's the most desirable version for somebody out there.
Hmm.
Uh, I think with trying to sell a card like this on TCG Player in particular, you have uh, the audience problem. If you're listing a card that's going in the last page of TCG Player,
Hmm.
is anybody ever going to see that? And the answer is really no.
Yeah, it sucks.
It really does.
There-
Yeah.
there's whole companies out there for Amazon that just try to fight for that buy box. Like, that is a big thing on Amazon, of course, and it's the same thing with TCG Player.
But now you're
In the
selling like
last part,
now you're selling like a variant and something cool, and like this is just going to get buried because of how they set
hmm
things up, and that's not really fair.
yep,
But it is what it is.
it sucks. In fact, I normally don't even look at listings with pictures. Those are always selected to just not show listings with pictures for most cards. Obviously,
Right.
more expensive stuff, it's different. But now the last card is near mint. I This card is gorgeous. It's a foil grid monolith. It is not signed, sadly. If it was signed, the answer would have been immediately get this thing graded because they don't exist at high grades. With this not being graded yet, I probably will end up getting it graded because we were talking earlier, and you said that there was a premium on this stuff.
Yeah, I sold a 9.5 at like 16 or 18. I sold a 9.5 at 1800 back when a regular clean copy was like 1200. I think that's kind of what we're going to be looking like here, where a you could probably try to sell this card raw for 2 grand. If you spike a 9.5 on it, it might be 2500.
Okay.
Now the grading
So
conversation
give it
is
a second look.
yep. The grading conversation is very different with Rusty because CGC is so close, and the cost of him getting something graded is trivial. If
Hmm.
he had to mail it to Texas and spend and wait 3 months to get this $1,600 card back that might be worth 2 grand, it might be worth 2,500 when he gets it back. Uh,
It's a
it's
gamble.
much harder to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a gamble, especially with everything going on right now. A lot of places are slower. CGC has actually been very quick. Their grades have been very good, from my understanding. People haven't had a lot of complaints. And since they are literally in my neighborhood, to the point where I could be there and back within 2 hours if I wanted to, with a card graded almost. That's why it's a conversation to have.
Yep.
Um, and stuff like that is like what you have to take into consideration. I try not to get cards graded if I can avoid it, honestly. I just like it, the extra time. Sometimes you're taking a risk. You're spending an extra $30, $100 to get a card graded. And unless it is a higher grade, you don't get a premium. Um, so there's a few different things, obviously, with that. And then I didn't send you a picture of this because I sent it to you earlier. These are just two cards I wanted to talk about because these are kind of cool. I have two Christopher Rush signed tokens. Um, one's a Channel Fireball token, and the other one is the Christopher Rush token from his website.
Yep.
So what do you like? What do you price the Channel Fireball one? Because the one from his website being signed is not that surprising. That's not that uncommon to me. But the Channel Fireball one is the Germ token. And what, like, is that something you just throw a number at it?
So my gut was like just say $100 and go from there. It looks like the Channel Fireball token. Uh, as I'm reading this, this was an auction with a bunch of different items
Hmm.
that went for a lot of money. It looks like $400 for a playmat that's signed and doodled, uh, plus uh, three three tokens. Um, it's weird that you would like put this kind of stupid value on a token, but also I don't think the tokens are particularly recent.
Yeah,
Um,
2014 was when they were out.
we do have a line from Jeff, who was Chris's agent, that said those sell for about 30 each. Um,
Okay,
it is playable. On a lot of the stuff, I kind of just will ask whatever I want and not really care
fair.
because
Yeah, and that's how I am. Like, I mean, sometimes you just like, okay, I know I'm paying a low amount for this, and if it sells at this number, then great. If it doesn't, then well, I mean, I didn't really pay much, or it's baked into the deal overall.
right. So maybe I'd put 75 on it. Maybe I'd put 50 on it if I felt it. I think any number is kind of defensible on the stuff, but also
Okay.
these are things that don't really exist in all that high quantity.
Yeah, and the people that want them are willing to pay that premium because you can't get any more. So something else that I found cool that I actually don't have in front of me to send you a picture is I have a Win England stamped card. Um, and the story behind that is that they made the stamp, I believe, after he passed for cards that he was supposed to be signing, and ended up stamping those cards with the signature instead, and it says stamp on there or whatever, and then they destroyed the stamp. So stuff like that, is that just the same thing? You're just like throw a number at it and see if somebody offers me something reasonable.
Uh, what was the card in question?
I don't remember what card it was off the top of my head, but I know it's a Wayne England stamped card, and I know those were only done for a
A
very
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 short
short
time.
period.
Yeah, like usually
Yeah,
like one or two events. Um,
not well, it wasn't even an event. It was after he passed for the Wayne England stamps. I believe his agent ended up getting a stamp made for his signature, because his wife wanted to make sure that his work was finished. That's from
so
what I remember, but I could be wrong.
okay, so I think now we're dealing in the this is really rare, but at the same time this is not really desirable, which is
Hmm.
not not great. Um, I would be pretty surprised if there was actual demand for stamp cards. Um, the there's two comparables of like a fairly widespread stamp on a card. Um, the Christopher Rush stamp happened at like Eternal Weekend in
Hmm.
2015, maybe, or I think it was 2015. It was still I think the last year in Philadelphia. Um, but I haven't seen any of those sell. And then the Steve Argyle had broken his hand and did a GP in Costa Rica and also Gen Con. So you can get a Steve Argyle broken hand stamp on Liliana. Those were kind of cool
Hmm.
for a while. I don't know if anybody cares anymore, but there was definitely demand at that point.
Yeah, I had a few of those, and I got like a small premium on them. And that's kind of the thing with stuff like this, because this gentleman's collection, a good bit of it was signed, and it's just oddity things like that that people don't, like this might be a $30 card, but is there a large premium on it? Is there not a premium? What's your tolerance to as a vendor?
Right.
But besides that, like, I mean, I have some other cool stuff that you'll see this weekend actually on Twitter. Um, so if you have any questions on stuff or you're curious on anything, let me know. But I'm gonna go ahead and I think go and then start working for the next 6 hours because I have to price everything. Don't you
Sounds
like
good.
waiting? Don't you
Yep.
like waiting till the last minute?
Absolutely. Sounds good. Good luck with everything. Uh, we've been going for just over an hour, so I'm going to get this stopped and chopped up, and I'll add all the pictures of all the cards so that there's some visuals to go along with this, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, throw my social medias out there too. I have no problem with any of that. And if anybody has any questions on anything or wants to purchase this stuff, I'm very available to answer questions. Being helpful and like giving information to people is something that I enjoy doing. So if you have any questions for me in general too, just go ahead and send them my way.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for listening. Please give feedback in the comments. If you enjoy what you're hearing, want me to do more of it, you can subscribe to me on Patreon, patreon.com/TOAMichael. There's tiers from $1 all the way up to $25. And the higher tiers get you cool things mailed every month. The dollar tier still gives you 5% off our website at TOAMagic.com. Have a good night, everyone.